it will conduct at 2 p.m. Since June 22nd onwards, we are conducting the CSR Sikri live webinar on electrochemical science and technology. This every Wednesday at 2 p.m. So, not disturbing your online classes for all over the India. So, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. we are conducting the CSR Sikri live webinar on electrochemical science and technology, especially for the school students. So the same speaker, Dr. S. Venkatesan, is going on webinar on 2 p.m. Okay. Now he is also presenting the teachers workshop. So Dr. Venkatesan Singaram is currently working as a senior scientist at Sikri. He has received his BSc degree in chemistry from Bharathidasan University, Trichy, and MSc Applied Chemistry from Anna University. He obtained MTech degree from IIT Delhi. He completed his PhD degree in the area of PEM fuel cell at Korea Institute of Science and Technology, South Korea. Further, he carried out postdoctoral research at University of Waterloo, Canada for more than 2.5 years. He more than 12 years of research experience and expertise in the area of material synthesis, polymer chemistry and electrochemistry. His research theme mainly focuses on the development of ion exchange membrane separator for water electrolyzers and fuel cells. He has also been working in the development of polymer composite fibers scaffolds for biomedical applications. He has published more than 25 articles in reputed SCI journals and holds one US patent and one Indian patent to his credit. He has attended more than 50 international and national conferences and presented his research work. Moreover, he has been serving as a reviewer of many international reputed journals as well as the TAC member of research scholars. He is currently a honorary fellow of Australian Institute.
You could not use your.
Sir, you are muted, Angappan sir. Your mic is muted.
No, sir, I think it has got stuck. No movement also. Sir.
No, now it is movement is there, but his mic is muted, Angappan sir.
Anandra.
சொல்லுப்பா
Not audible.
சொல்லு வாசுதேவா
இன்னும் முடியல
Angappan
என்ன
sir, kindly unmute sir.
என்னப்பா பண்றது என்ன பண்றது கஷ்டம்தான்
Sir, send the message or call him, sir, so that he can get the information. Call him, sir. Angappan sir ko bulaiye, sir. Then he can come to know by calling.
What is the schedule for the closing ceremony? Thank you.
Tiwari ji. तिवारी जी
सर
और थोड़ा
सर,
टाइम
सर।
लगेगा शायद और थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा शायद क्योंकि एक्चुअली इन माय
रहेगा
Sir, voice is not audible, sir.
oh sir, that's not only that sir no in my cell it is completely frozen that his picture is just staying stagnant, that's all, no movement at all, so I not know, I
No
don't
video,
know.
no video, no audio.
Yeah,
No
this
video,
is-
no audio, please.
now I think now I think it will become all
Yes.
right. They are making
Yeah.
it.
Hello, participants.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes madam.
So yes, hello.
Yes sir, yes sir.
Yeah.
Now is
Yes,
hearing?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
Now-
yeah, able to hear sir.
Yeah. Okay. Can I see me? Hello.
No, sir. We
Ah.
are not able to see, sir.
Yes, sir. We can able to hear, sir.
Hear but not able to see. Video
Okay,
is
sir.
not there.
Able to hear, but
No
not
video.
able to see, sir. No,
Yes,
no
yes,
video
yes.
is.
Yes, sir.
Now you can see.
Yes,
No.
sir.
Sir,
Sir, now you can see. I think so.
make
No,
visible.
no video.
Hello.
Sir, now your
Still
video.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
வீடியோ தெரியுதாப்பா வாசு?
வீடியோ தெரியல.
தெரியல.
தெரியல. தெரியல. அங்க கனெக்டிவிட்டில ஏதோ ப்ராப்ளம்
ஏதோ ப்ராப்ளம்.
Now the video is also coming, sir. It will come. Wait.
Okay.
இப்ப நான் வந்து
வருதுப்பா.
Yes.
Now okay, sir. Now.
So dear participants, very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
So on behalf of this Jikyasa workshop program, I welcome all the teachers from KV and other schools for this workshop. And I thank Dr. Angappan for his brief introduction about me. So myself, I am Dr. S. Venkatesan. I'm working as senior scientist in Electrochemical Process Engineering Division. So my talk today will be on membranes for water treatment processes. So we all of us know the importance of water. So water is essential in our life. So without water, no life. So that every drop of water is very important, and moreover, the drinking water, the need for drinking water is day by day increasing, and we should have a good quality drinking water for our good health. So based on this, okay, we have raw water from many sources like a river, pond, and then from from falls. So we have many sources of water, and this water we cannot drink directly. So this water has to be processed for its drinking quality. So for treating this water, there are many treatment processes. Okay, series of treatment processes. So in this slide, we can see like they add some coagulants to make coagulation of your raw water, and then it undergoes flocculation and then sedimentation of particles. Then this water passed into some filter, and this filter filtrate the dissolved salts or virus, bacteria and all, and then this water after disinfection it goes to treated water storage, and finally it is distributed for home consumption. So before our consumption, the water undergoes various processes for making it good quality. So okay, so in case of water treatment processes, what are the applications of membrane based processes? So I will talk about membrane in later slides, but what are the applications of membrane processes we have to look at first. The first one is desalination of seawater. So seawater contains high amount of salts. So we have to remove the seawater for its drinking purpose. And then the second one is treating brackish groundwater. So groundwater also has some kind of, dissolved salts and then dissolved ions in that. So we have to treat that water before drinking. And then water softening. So in some places we can see the hard water, like the hard water is nothing but which has mostly calcium and magnesium ions. So this water has to be softened before undergoes drinking. And then wastewater recovery. So some industrial processes, there is wastewater that we have to do some recovery process to make it into drinking water. And then finally, removing color, odor, and other organic contaminants. For example, if you take some dye industries, so there are like various dyes used. So those waters also have to be treated. So in all these processes, membrane play a vital role, okay, for the treatment and converting into potable or drinking water. Okay. So what are the advantages of membrane processes compared to other processes? We have to look at, because there are so many processes, like as I said, coagulation and then sedimentation, and we can do some chemical methods. But compared to other methods, what are the advantages of membrane processes? The first one is better removal of contaminants. So compared to other methods, this membrane process can remove the contaminants very well. And then higher efficiency. And third one is membrane integrity assurance. So the membrane integrity assurance means the membrane retain its structure, okay, even after so many treatments, after undergoing so many treatment processes. And then variable filtration ratings. So here in membrane processes, we can change the filtration ratings, and then smaller footprints. Smaller footprints in the sense like carbon and all, like for example, if you have some organic contaminants in the water, so that will make some footprints. So those organic contaminants also can be removed. And another one is consistent operation. So this is also very important. And more importantly, the final one, environmental friendly. So since membrane act as a separator, that means it separates pure water from the contaminants. So we can say these membrane processes are environment friendly, because if you use some chemical processes, we have to use some chemical reagents. So in that case, it may bring some hazardness or toxicity to the water. So here, since membrane doing only the separation process, so it is environment friendly. Okay, so this slide just shows for the last 20 years, from 96 to 2016, the number of patents and papers published in membrane separation processes. Like the first figure, we can see the number of patents per year based on different membrane treatment process, like MBR, that means microbial biological reactor, and then desalination process, ion exchange process. So we can see that there is a gradual increase in number of patents. In case of ion exchange, it is more compared to other membrane processes. So and when you look at the papers also, I mean, number of papers means here the publications. Out of these research, we can see from 96 to 2006, there is a drastic increase in all kind of membrane treatment processes. Either you take ion exchange or MBR, and we can say MBR, it is recent days, it is, you know, the emerging area that most of the membrane based researchers are undergoing. Okay, so but when you look at the country-wise contribution for this number of patents, we can see Japan is at number 1. They have almost, you know, produced 2,000 patents, and then Korea second, United States third, and then Canada and so on. And we cannot see India in the top 10 list here in number of patents producing. But when we look at the number of papers, here we can see again United States number 1, and then China number 2, Japan number 3rd, and India is at number 6. So when we compare the number of papers produced to the number of patents, so India still has to improve their, you know, the technology wise approaches to make it into patents. So this is what my opinion. Okay, so whatever we have seen, the strategies in membrane treatment processes. So I just want to go for the general, you know, definition. So what are membrane processes? Membrane processes include a broad range of separation processes that start from filtration to ultrafiltration and then reverse osmosis. So we can see the figure here. When you take the raw water, it undergoes first microfiltration, which, you know, filtrate the particles in the range of size from 0.1 to 10 micron, and then it undergoes ultrafiltration, where the size, you know, the size will be like 0.01 to 0.1, and then nanofiltration, the size of particles which are, you know, removed will be like 0.001 to 0.01, and then reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is, you know, the high level of filtration we can say. Here the filtration range is 0.0001 to 0.001 micron. So we can say the reverse osmosis is the ultimate process that can filter, you know, most of the contaminants in the water. And also we can see at the bottom the pressure. See, usually when you employ membrane, we have to apply pressure. The reason is the water molecules cannot move through the membrane freely. So in that case, we have to force these water molecules to flow through this membrane. So for that, we have to apply pressure. So we can see the pressure also changes based on these different types of filtration process. Let's start from microfiltration. It needs 0.2 to 5 bar, whereas if you take the last extreme, reverse osmosis, it operates at 10 to 150 bar. So this mainly due to the membrane structure and then porosity that plays a main role why these processes need high pressure. Okay, so what are the separation factors in the membrane processes? So we can see here there are 3 major separation factors. One is molecular size. So the size of the molecules that are separated is very important, and then polarity. So polarity in the sense that, so we can say this molecule is either hydrophilic or hydrophobic, or it has charges. So that polarity also play a main role here. And molecular shape. So shape in the sense that its structure, like for example, it's linear or branched, or let's take aromatic structure and then aliphatic structure. So aliphatic structure, maybe we can consider linear structure, and aromatic, like it is like a bulky structure. So this molecular shape also very important in these separation processes. So as I said before, the size separated, I mean micron size, it is tabulated here based on the different separation processes. Like what are all the main things, I mean main contaminants that are, you know, separated. So if you take at the right extreme, conventional filtration processes, so it filtrates sand, sand, mainly sand. That means the particles. And then if you go to microfiltration, it filtrates bacteria, algae, and then it can filtrate, clays. And then if you go to ultrafiltration further, it can filtrate viruses. And then finally, if you go to reverse osmosis, where we have RO systems, it can separate these aqueous salts and metal ions. So mostly these aqueous salts and metal ions in dissolved form. So when you want to remove these dissolved salts, we have to choose this reverse osmosis process. Okay, so types of membrane processes, as I said before, there are 5 major categories like microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, and then reverse osmosis. And finally, there is one electrochemical based method, electrodialysis. So I will talk about this one in later with more explanations. Okay, when you look at the process configuration for any membrane separation processes, so you can see the semi-permeable membrane which is placed at the center. So the feed water comes in, where the feed water stream comes into the membrane, and you can see it is separated into product and the concentrate. That means the residue is retained as constituents. So we can say these retained constituents as concentrate or retentate or rejects. Okay, so a basic configuration for any membrane process, it looks like this. So it has these 3 major steps. Okay, so now we come to the main component here, membrane. So since this membrane process involve membrane, so we should know about what is a membrane. So a membrane is nothing but a semi-permeable membrane is a very thin film. So you can say it can vary from nanometer size to micron size to millimeter. So depending on the applications, so we can use a various thickness of thin film. Okay, so the purpose of this semi-permeable membrane is the membrane allows some types of matter to pass through while leaving others behind. So we can see here in the picture, we can see a mixture of solute particle and solvent in the feed stream, which is passed through a thin film, thin film membrane. So we can see permeate, which contains only solvent, not the solute particle. So that means the solvents can only pass through the membrane and solute cannot. But we can see some solute particles also in the permeate. So that depends on the membrane, efficiency. So here, the main purpose of this semi-permeable membrane is to allow only specific components through it and retain others. So membrane types. So membrane types also based on the different separation process. So we can say electrodialysis membrane or microfiltration, MF membranes, UF membranes, NF and RO membranes. So here we can see what are the components that are transported in each membrane, and then what are the components retained. So when you look at for example, RO, there almost everything retained. So it only allows water molecules. So very small uncharged water molecules are passed through the RO membranes. Whereas if you take the other extreme, like electrodialysis, so electrodialysis here, it can retain water, TSS, microbes and uncharged molecules, but it allows only dissolved salts. That means it can allow only ions. Okay, so now we go to the membrane classification part. So this membrane classification is based on materials. So based on the materials used in membranes, so we can classify these membranes into 2 major category. One is biological, another one is synthetic. Okay, so we can take our lungs. So our lungs itself a cell membrane. Okay, so what happens in lungs? The air is filtered. Okay, air is filtered. So the lung itself and also it purifies the blood also. So here lungs act as a cell membrane. And then if you look at the synthetic membranes, there are 2 major categories again. One is organic and another one is inorganic. So organic here mainly polymeric. So polymers are nothing but they are macromolecules, as you know very well. So which form by means of combining so many small organic molecules combined together to form the polymers. So here again the polymers also can be classified into glassy type polymers or rubbery type polymers. Okay, when you take the inorganic polymers, so there are like ceramic, glass, metallic, and then zeolite. So zeolite is kind of natural silicates which is available in nature. So this also can be used as membranes. Next, the membrane classification based on structure. So the structure and the mechanism how these membrane do these separation processes. The first one you can see the porous membrane, where the membrane has some definite pores. Mostly microfiltration and ultrafiltration membranes comes in this category. So here what happens due to the pore size, it allows the pores allows only the molecules which are smaller than the pore size of the membrane, and then it retain the bigger size molecules. So porous membrane, whereas the next one is dense membrane. Dense membrane means, so here there is no pores, it's non-porous membrane, and here the mechanism is something like diffusion process. So what happens, your molecule which diffuses through your membrane by means of dissolution in the membrane and then transportation. Okay, so mostly this is used here, in case of gas separation and then pervaporation. So gas separation, suppose you have a mixture of methane and hydrogen, you want to separate using the membranes. Then for separating these membranes, we use this dense membrane with some functional properties that can separate these methane and hydrogen molecules. And the third category is very important one, carrier membranes. So here carrier membranes in the sense that there are some carriers that carry your molecules through the membrane. So mostly here there are some ion exchange groups like cation exchange, anion exchange groups are there that will carry your cation or anion through the membrane. So this is very special type of membrane compared to other two. Okay, now we go more detail into microfiltration process. So here microfiltration process we can say like it is kind of universal type. So here like any filtration mode we can use, and any membrane configuration also we can use, and of course it needs back flushing and air score. Here the operating pressure, if you look at, it is 20 to 30 psi. See, when you compare to reverse osmosis membranes, here in microfiltration membranes it operates at low pressure. So that is the advantage of microfiltration process. And here this process is highly automated, and we can add coagulants to enhance filtration. So coagulants for the purpose to precipitate some materials before undergoing filtration process, and then it can be a good pre-treatment for RO or NF. So this is very important. See, like in case of RO membranes, we cannot directly use any kind of feed water. So before going into RO membrane, we have to do some pre-treatment. That means, so we have to remove the larger particles by means of microfiltration. So microfiltration acts as a pre-treatment process for RO or nanofiltration process. Okay, now let's go to ultrafiltration, which is a little higher version to microfiltration. So here we can see this is also primarily a concentration process before going into RO process. So here, as I told, pumping energy is required to force liquid through the membrane. So that means the membrane is the pore size will be very less. So the molecules cannot easily pass through the membrane. So we have to apply some force or pressure. So here the large size particles, so you can say the molecular weight around 10,000 to 40,000. This molecular weight ranges are retained and concentrated. So that means 10,000 to 40,000, you can take like polymers, or you can say proteins, and then like natural polymers like cellulose and starch. So these type of molecules can be retained in the ultrafiltration membrane. And mainly it is used in recycling of metal containing alkaline cleaner waste. So, and also it is used in paint industry. So mainly this is used in reduction of metal in industrial waste. So like industrial waste, if you take any metal industry, there will be some metal waste. So to reduce the metal content in the waste, so we can use this ultrafiltration. Okay, so what is the main feature of this ultrafiltration? So it does not change the chemistry of water. So the chemistry of water is retained. For example, to obtain a potable water from surface water, which is chemically clean but contains only algae and bacteria, let's assume, then we can use directly this ultrafiltration method rather than going to other separation methods. So that means it has only microorganisms. So we can use ultrafiltration to remove these algae and bacteria. And then it removes turbidity also, and with maintaining the same water quality. There is no chemistry, as I said before, there is no chemistry of water changed here. And then UF removes larger organics, colloids, bacteria, while allowing most ions and small organics to permeate the porous structures. So here also there is some disadvantage in ultrafiltration process. It cannot remove all the ions. Like it can allow small ions and small organics to permeate through the porous structure. Okay, so what is the main advantage of using ultrafiltration process? So it can replace several conventional processes. Like if you take conventional processes, you take surface water and then do pre-chlorination and then coagulant addition, and then you have to use a flocculation tank and clarification, and finally and then sand filtration, and finally you have to do post-chlorination before converting into treated water. So this is the conventional process. So there are so many series of processes you have to use in conventional treatment processes. So here when you use ultrafiltration membrane, you are removing all these series of processes by using membranes which can do this filtration process in single step. So that is the main advantage of using this ultrafiltration membrane process. So this can be used as a pre-treatment process before RO process, because before going to RO process, we should have some kind of water chemistry should be there. That means you should not have larger particles. Otherwise, there will be membrane clogging will occur when you directly take the water with the larger particles to RO system. So so in that case, this ultrafiltration can be used before going to RO process. So and also applications in industrial waste. What are the main applications? In metal industry, it is used to separate water oil emulsions, and then in automotive painting industry, it is used to separate dye from washing water, and then pharmaceutical industry, it is used to separate enzymes, and then food industry like cheese waste, so it is used to process these waste. Okay, the next one is another updated version to ultrafiltration. So here nanofiltration. So that means here the particles which are in nano size, they are filtered. So here we can see like this also have any membrane configuration. The main advantage of this method is you can see the turbidity level less than 1 NTU. So NTU is nothing but nephelometric turbidity unit. Okay, so we can reduce the turbidity to less than 1 NTU. And operating pressure, if you look at compared to microfiltration and ultrafiltration, here nanofiltration, the operating pressure is high, around 50 to 200 psi. And then this is mainly used for softening or special applications. So mainly softening, like if you have the hot water, so this method can be used for softening purpose. And then and also it is very economically feasible process. And here this nanofiltration removes organic compounds. We can see like it can remove organic compounds in the range of 250 to 1000 molecular weights. So that means it can remove small organic molecules. Like if you have some kind of aromatic, some kind of organic compounds in your water, so that can be removed by means of nanofiltration process. And also it rejects some salts like divalent salts like copper 2+, magnesium 2+. So that is why I said before it is used in membrane softening process where the removal of calcium and magnesium plays a main role. And then compared to RO process, it is lower driving pressure. It can operate at low pressure. So that is also one advantage of this nanofiltration process than RO process. Okay, so now we come to the main process that is used in our day-to-day life. We can see like many RO systems for treating this water, and mostly we take drinking water after RO treated. So here we can see the two, this slide shows the two different processes. One is a natural process where osmosis. So you can see like if you have a pure water and salt water, you have a pure water and salt water which is separated by means of a semi-permeable membrane. So then what happens, the water level at the salt water side increases. That means the pure water moves from the pure water side to the salt water. So that means the water molecules move from low concentration side to the high concentration side. Okay, so what happens if you apply some pressure on the salt water side? So if you apply some pressure in the salt water side, this process is get reversed. That means the water molecules in the salt water side moves through the membrane to the pure water side. So this is how this reverse osmosis process occurs. So reverse osmosis process usually for desalination of salt water, and also many water treatment processes, the RO type membrane process is used. So here we have to apply a huge pressure to force the water molecules to move from the higher concentration to the low concentration. So this is very important. Okay, so we know that osmosis, so a natural process that occurs in plants. So we can see plants take water by means of osmosis process. So here what happens, the water from low concentration in the earth, and it moves through the roots to the roots to the trees, and then it goes to the leaves. Okay, and then further from the leaves the water evaporates. Okay, whereas in case of RO system the process is reverse. So what happens, you just imagine the case, the water from the tree which goes to ground. So that means we have to apply some pressure to make this process to get into reversed. So that means the water from the high concentration side will move to the low concentration side. So in case of RO process, there is two major processes. One is one stage process. Here we can see the elements are arranged in parallel. So we can see the elements like in parallelly arranged. So we can see the feed water feed through the, it is fed through the coarse filter, and then it go to the pump. The pump forces give the force to force the water through the membrane, and then we can see the membrane is parallelly arranged, and from the membrane there are two major things. One is product and another one is concentrate. So the product will go to the downstream, and then the concentrate will be recycled again to the feed system. So this is called one stage. And then there is two stage systems in which we have like two stages of treatment process. The first one, in the first stage, there are two parallel, there are two parallel treatment systems in which the feed water is passed through the membrane system, and then the product is collected, permeate is collected at the bottom, and then the concentrate it is not recycled again to the feed system, but it is separately passed through the stage 2. So stage 2 has another set of membranes. So these membranes treat this water into product, and then there will be rejects. So this two-stage system is more advantageous than single-stage system. The thing is that here completely we are separating product, pure product, and then reject. Okay, so in reverse osmosis, so what type of membrane configurations are used? So we can use spiral wound or hollow fine fiber. Here, as I said earlier, pre-treatment is critical to success. So that means we cannot directly use any type of water into RO system. So before going to RO system, we have to treat the water by means of either microfiltration or ultrafiltration or nanofiltration. So and here we can see the NTU is less than 1. The main important thing here is the operating pressure is very high. That means these systems operate at high pressure, around 150 to 1000 psi. So that is the main feature of this reverse osmosis process, and then it can remove around 95 to 99% total dissolved solids. So that means it can remove almost any dissolved solids present in the water. Okay, so as I said earlier, so reverse osmosis process can concentrate dissolved materials from dilute solutions, and here the main features of this reverse osmosis process is here the size and charge are very effective. So that means you have different size and charged molecules. Let's say you have singly charged proton H+. So this can easily pass through the membrane. That means here the proton has unit charge, and then it has very low size. The size also very less. So it can pass very easily through the membrane. If you take large metallic ions like nickel, zinc, copper, and cadmium, so these larger metallic ions cannot pass easily. So that means here both charge as well as size matters. And then the third one is lower positive charge ions can pass. Like if you have sodium and potassium ions, like if you have salt water, it has sodium, potassium ions. So the sodium and potassium ions can pass through. But compared to protons like H+, this sodium and potassium passing through the membrane is very less. That means the singly charged proton ions can pass readily. So here large pumping energy is required to force the liquid through the membrane from lesser to more concentrated solution, because the pressure must overcome the osmotic pressure between the solution. So the natural process, osmotic process that occurs in the solutions, so that process creates some pressure. So to overcome the pressure, we have to apply the pressure in opposite side to make this process get reversed. Okay. Then RO used by metal platers for controlling nickel in the rinse discharge. Like RO is successfully applied for removing fats, oils, and then grease. So that is the advantage of using this RO process. I will show here some examples of research publications that comes on water treatment processes using membranes. So here we can use cellulose nanomaterials as membranes in water treatment technologies. So here we can see cellulose sources from, see usually cellulose present in trees, woods, because it's a natural polymer. So it is present in the natural things, and then these cellulose materials are taken, and then it undergoes mechanical and chemical processing to make it into cellulose nanofibrils. We can see the structure. I mean, some images shown here which has some fiber structure. So these are all cellulose nanofibrils, and then these cellulose fibrils can be produced from cellulose fibril producing organisms. There are some organisms which produce this cellulose. From there also we can extract these cellulose nanofibrils, and then by acid hydrolysis of these cellulose nanofibrils we can make it into cellulose nanocrystals, and finally these cellulose nanocrystals can be made into membranes, and these membranes, they have both amorphous regions and then crystalline regions. That means when the fibers are like packed regularly or arranged regularly in a compact manner, so it causes crystalline regions, and then if you take a single fiber in random orientation, so it will be amorphous region. So when you make a membrane from the cellulose nanofibrils, it contains both amorphous as well as crystalline regions. And then this publication shows carbon nanotube based membranes. So carbon nanotube is a carbon version. Like we can say the carbon, what we can see like graphite and diamond is the natural forms of carbon, and there is the recent versions from carbon like carbon nanotube, graphene, fullerenes. So this discovery of graphene carbon nanotubes made the research into diverse applications, like these CNTs and graphenes. They are explored in many research applications. Likewise, here also these CNTs are used in water purification. So here we can see, if you take CNT, there is single walled CNT and then multi-walled. So these CNTs are like one-dimensional tubes, and it has definite pores. So through these pores, the small molecules or the molecules which are smaller in size can pass through this membrane. So we can see, like, either you can make these membranes like a vertical type. See, suppose you can make the carbon nanotubes vertical, and you can pass the feed water through the top, and then in the bottom the smaller molecules will come out. And then if you take a mixed CNT membranes, it contains a different orientation and different arrangements of nanotubes. So here, here also, this can separate the particles or the water through this membrane by means of size. So this is one type of example that carbon nanotubes can be used as membrane for water purification. And then the next one is graphene oxide. As I said earlier, like carbon nanotube, graphene. So what is the difference between carbon nanotube and then graphene? So carbon nanotube is one-dimensional tube. I mean tubular structure, whereas graphene is graphene is two-dimensional flat sheets. Suppose if you take a carbon nanotube and then you make scissoring of this carbon nanotube, you will end up with graphene. So graphene is a flat sheet of thin sheet of layers, 2D layers, which comprise mostly the carbon hexagons. Okay, so here we can see this graphene-based monolayer or graphene-based layers are supported on the, are coated on the nanofibrous support. So here the nanofibrous support is used to coat the membrane on the top. So what we can see, like in the slide here, the graphene is coated on the surface, and then it undergoes vacuum suction to make GO coated. That means GO in the sense graphene oxide. So this GO, I mean, coated on the nanofibrous support. So here we can see the water can diffuse through the pores. So this graphene also has pores. Through these pores, that water can be diffused. And if you look at the mechanisms here, there are different types of mechanism act. Like there are some hydrophilic groups present in graphene. So that will, that will absorb the hydrophilic molecules. And then there are hydrophobic carbon walls present in the graphene that can, act as a hydrophobic nanochannels to expel the water. So that means both hydrophilic and hydrophobic groups play a vital role in separation of water molecules. So one act as a absorption agent, and another one is like rejection. So this kind of mechanism occurs in graphene oxide. And another one is metal organic framework. So this is like this paper appeared in Science. So metal organic frameworks are nothing but it is the combination of metal coordinated with organic ligands. So we know that organometallics, there is a central metal ion which is coordinated with the organic ligands. So these ligands are negatively charged, and this can coordinate with the metal ions. And when this metal organic framework usually it occurs as a three-dimensional network structure. So that means it is like it is very systematically arranged, and it has definite pores in between these the organic frameworks. So these pores can act as molecular sieving membranes. That means through these pores the molecules can penetrate through. We can see here one example like zinc porphyrin. So this zinc porphyrin which is attached, zinc is attached to porphyrin, and here we can see the pores at the right hand side. You can see like the pores with the with pore size of 0.21 nanometer. There is a pore. These pores can allow the small organic molecules, and it can act as molecular sieving membranes. Okay. The next one is different from other type of membranes. So this is biomimetic membranes. So here there is some biomimetic components made into multi-layers. They take like silk aqueous solution, and then they make into a silk nanofiber, SNF solution by heating at 60 degrees Celsius. So that means the silk particles, individual particles, it aggregates to form this silk nanofiber solution, and then they do biomineralization with hydroxyapatite. So this hydroxyapatite is nothing but a phosphate mineral, which which is main constituent in our bones. Okay, so this SNF is mixed with the HAP solution to make like the composite of SNF and HAP, and then it is passed through the vacuum filtration setup to make a membrane. And here we can see the same picture at the bottom, the membrane which has the multi-layer structure. So this multi-layer structured membrane can be used for water purification purpose. Okay, so so far we have seen some examples of literature publications. So on membrane-based processes, and how membranes are developed and used in this membrane treatment process. So now we will look at the membrane configurations, like membrane designs and membrane structure. So the first one is spiral wound. So here the membranes are like spiral type. So that means the two flat membrane sheets, like two or more flat membrane sheets, are rolled to make these spiral wound membranes. And the next one is hollow fiber. So hollow fiber, here the fiber has like a tubular structure. So that fiber it has some definite pores, as I told, like carbon nanotubes. So we can consider this, that one as hollow fiber. So here what happens, the separation mechanism occurs like inside out and outside in flow. the water is passed through the outside, and then it passed through the walls of these tubes, and then we will get the pure water inside the membrane, inside the fiber. Okay, tubular also more or less same like hollow fiber. So here also the tubular, there is like inside outside configurations. So here outside feed water is passed, and from the inside the pure water comes out. So the tubular configurations can be made either single or in a bundle. So we can make either single or in a bundle. And then plates and frame type. So here series of flat membrane sheets are stacked. So that means they are like assembled to make these plates and frame structure. And finally there is cartridge type, like cartridge filters. We can make these membrane materials into the cartridge filters, and then these cartridge filters can be used for filtering applications. So here mainly this is used in microfiltration application, like concentration of virus from treated water. So we can see the structure of membrane, different type of membranes I discussed. So here we can see like depth filters and then spiral wound configurations. So spiral wound configuration, like there is like two membrane envelopes, and in between there are some spaces, and these spaces act as the passage of permeates, and then it is like rolled and it made into membrane. And then we can see like the plate and sheet type membrane, which is arranged like which is assembled in a stack. And then we can see like we can see like the product collected outlet inlet configurations. So the product which is passed through the inlet, and it is collected at the bottom as pure water. So these are like very more like engineering aspects which involves the engineering of membrane materials to make it into different membrane configurations. So this is very important for making different membrane configurations. And as I told, the cartridge type, so here we can see like there are cartridges, cartridge which is assembled in a setup. So the feed water comes in, and then product water goes out, and in between you can see the return date, which is collected at the bottom. And then we can see like tubular or hollow fiber model, which is also like arranged in a particular design. So here both the design and geometry is very important in making these membrane configurations. Okay, so as I said before, there are three different types of membrane membrane separation mechanisms. One is sieving. Sieving in the sense that it has some definite pores so that it can act as a sieve, and it can allow only the small size particles through these membranes. And then solution diffusion, we can see like solution diffusion, the solution from the salt, from higher concentration, it goes to the lower concentration. And here the mechanism is the solution, the salts are dissolved in the membrane, and then it passes through the membrane. And the third one is pore flow model, and pore flow model also based on sieving, and here also it allows the definite particle sizes through these membranes. So these are some of the large size membrane separation unit. The example shown here is a wastewater recovery that can recover 6 grams per minute of water from the wastewater from industries. And then there is vacuum driven separation also possible, like instead of applying pressure in the microfiltration or ultrafiltration unit. So what you can do you can apply the vacuum on the other side. That means if you apply pressure on high salt concentration side, then vacuum you can apply at the low concentration side, and then through this vacuum the particles are pulled or the molecules are pulled through this membrane, and then there is separation process occurs. So there is some examples of these vacuum driven separations which is shown here. Of course here it is shown here some commercial hollow fiber modules that are used. So it removes the virus and then some bacteria, and also it is used in wastewater recovery. Okay, so and this plant removes around 0.2 million gallons of water per day. So that is microfiltration units, which has 80% recovery, and then here the concentrate is discharged to surface water. So this is one type of plant setup. The next one is here the 0.1 MGD. So MGD is nothing but it can treat that mega gallons of water per day. RO packaging system. So it is like a kind of a compact system that is used as a RO system. And then we can go like the desalting plant. So we can see here a huge desalting plant which can remove 100 million gallons of water per day. Okay, so this is one such example of a huge desalting plant which is used to convert salt water into drinking water. And then this is also another a big unit of water treatment process. This place I think somewhere in abroad. So they use this water purification center, process. Okay. Now I come to one important separation process, which is nothing but based on dialysis. As all of us knows about dialysis, so that is mostly used in kidney disinfection. Dialysis is used. So in medical sectors. So the thing is that when the kidney cannot function efficiently to remove the waste from our body, then this dialysis is used. So in case of dialysis, if you apply electrical current, when the dialysis operate by means of applying electrical current, then that process is called electrodialysis. So the electrodialysis is a process in which you apply the electric current and then it separates the ions. So here some chemicals cannot pass through these charged membranes as easily as water. So here what happens actually, there is a series of positive and negatively charged ion exchange membranes arranged. So these ion exchange membranes can allow only the charged species, not the neutral molecules. So when you apply the direct current electricity here, so what happens? These positive and negative ions move through the membrane due to the applied electricity, and then these positive and negative ions separates. So this is mainly used for the removal of ionic species like sulfate, fluoride, and chromates. So fluoride, fluoride also is one such toxic component present in water. So this fluoride removal is very critical. Even presence of 1% of fluoride causes dental fluorosis. So the dental fluorosis, mostly it decay our tooth. So this dental fluorosis occurs by means of high concentration of fluoride. So the fluoride removal also very important. So to remove the fluoride, we can use this electrodialysis process. So this slide shows some basic principle involved in the electrodialysis process. As we can see, at the two extremes, there is two electrodes. One is anode and another one is cathode. And when you apply the electric charge to these two electrodes, and in between there are like cation transfer membrane and anion exchange transfer membrane, which are arranged alternately. So what happens, where due to the applied electricity, these sodium ions move through. See, mostly if you take water or salt water, it has sodium chloride. That means sodium positive ions and chloride negative ions. So this sodium ion tends to move through the cathode, negative charged electrode, and then chloride ion pass to the anode side. So these membranes will allow these ions through the membranes based on ion exchange process. So the cation exchange membrane only selectively allow the cations, whereas the anion exchange membrane allow only the anions. So like this, the ions are separated and then concentrated, and finally we will get a pure water based on this process. Okay, so here I can show some examples for ion exchange membranes. Like these are all some aromatic based polymers which are used as ion exchange membranes. So in fact, my research is mainly focused on developing ion exchange membrane, but in fact not for water treatment process. I am working on membranes for water electrolyzers and fuel cells. So these membranes can be used in water treatment also. Like we can see cation exchange membranes, which are like the examples shown here, like sulfonated polyether ether ketone, or polybenzimidazole, or sulfonated polyether sulfone. So these are like aromatic membrane. Here the ion exchange group is the sulfonic acid, which is a strong cation exchange group present in the membrane. It can exchange only the cations, not the anions. So that is why it is called selective cation exchange membrane. And when you take anion exchange membrane, we can see at the bottom it is quaternized polyether sulfone, which has some quaternary ammonium group, which conduct only the anions like bromide, chloride, OH minus. So these anions only can be exchanged through this membrane and then transported. So that is the beauty of these membranes. So these are all very selective membranes. So and these membranes can be used for many applications. As I said earlier, it is mainly used in electrochemical devices like fuel cells, electrolyzers, and so on. And this system is one photovoltaic electrodialysis system, which can remove 1 gram per minute. I mean, which has the process ability of 1 gram per minute. And this slide is very interesting. Like electrodialysis, since I told like electrodialysis, you have to apply electrical current. So electrical consumption, to reduce the electrical consumption due to the energy crisis, so we can use the photovoltaic devices. So the photovoltaic devices, very well, like the solar panels that we use in our day-to-day, I mean, in our life. So here what happens, the photovoltaic convert the solar energy into electrical energy. So one such system is shown here. Like there are so many photovoltaic panels are arranged here, and then these photovoltaic solar panels convert the solar energy into electrical energy, and these electrical energies are used for the electrodialysis process. Okay, so one more interesting thing here. In some parts of the world, there is saline wetlands. So that means the water is saline. So that means it has more dissolved salts in the water, which cannot be used for agriculture purpose. So in this case, what they are using this electrodialysis process to remove the dissolved salt ions, to remove the excess salts from the ground, I mean groundwater, to make it into fertile. So this is one such example of making saline wetlands into agriculture, agriculture lands. So this is followed. To reduce the salinity level. Okay, as I said before, the irrigation is very important. For irrigation, the TDS should be less than 1000 milligram per liter. That means the total dissolved solids in the water should be less than 1000 milligram. Okay, that means 1000 ppm in the water, so that the water can be used for irrigation purpose. And then we need careful irrigation management. Of course, there is need for soil moisture monitoring equipments when you want to use this water for irrigation purpose. Okay, so far I have discussed about the membrane basic principles, membrane configurations, and then the applications of membrane in different processes and their merits. So now comes into a major problem. Otherwise we can say the bottleneck in membrane is membrane fouling. That means membrane fouling in the sense membrane failure. So here what happens, the membrane may undergo some fouling process due to the deposition and accumulation of constituent in the feed stream on the membrane. There are some feed stream which has good affinity towards the membrane and it attached to the membrane. So what happens due to this attachment, then the membrane cannot function efficiently. So this is what called membrane fouling process. And when we take biological fouling, usually these biological molecules can easily deposit on the membrane. Like if you take microorganisms like bacteria, virus, and so on, so they can easily deposit on the membrane surface and make fouling. And this can be controlled by disinfection, like chlorination. If you do chlorination, this biological fouling can be controlled. You can do UV applications like UV process. You pass UV light to treat this water to remove these biological substances. So that also we can follow. Okay, so one more important and emerging area in this membrane based separation process is membrane biological reactor, MBR. So this is mainly used to avoid this membrane fouling process. So as I said in the earlier slide, membrane fouling process mostly occur on the membrane due to biological components. So this membrane biological is designed in such a way that it has both the microfiltration membrane as well as the biomass. So this biomass, here the biomass can be act as a membrane biological treatment agent. So here the nominal pore size here is 0.1 to 0.4 micron. Membranes are used, and then MBRs can be used with aerobic, anaerobic suspended growth bioreactors to separate treated wastewater from active biomass. So it can remove both, biomass as well as the suspended particles. So this is used as supplementary solid separation in secondary clarification and also effluent filtration, and it eliminates secondary clarification and operate at higher MLS. So what are the main advantages here? Like higher volumetric loading rates. So since I told the microfiltration, nanofiltration membranes, they operate at high pressures, and moreover membrane fouling process reduce the efficiency of this membrane. Here in this process, since these biological contaminants are removed, so we can use higher volumetric loading rates. So that is very important. Of course, the shorter HRT time. So there will be less sludge production. So that means the concentrate will be less here. And as I said before, it can operate at low, operation at low dissolved oxygen, and potential for simultaneous nitrification, denitrification in long SRT systems, and high effluent quality, like it can have low turbidity, low bacteria, low dissolved solids and all, less space. Okay. So what is the disadvantages with these microbial biological reactor systems, the capital cost is high. So you have to spend more, more construction cost for these MBR reactors, and then limited data on membrane life. So high cost of membrane replacement, energy cost. Here also there are some membrane fouling. I mean, still we cannot say there is zero membrane, fouling process. And here we can see MBR, there are two types. One is integrated type. So here the membranes are mounted in cassettes, and these membranes are immersed in membrane module. And then there is another type, bioreactor with an external membrane separation unit. And here we can see like
வாசு ஒழுங்கா ஒர்க் பண்ணுதா வாசு? வாசு
சொல்லுப்பா. சொல்லு.
ஒழுங்கா ஒர்க் பண்ணுதா? டிஸ்டர்ப் ஆயிட்டே இல்ல?
ஆமா, கொஞ்சம் டிஸ்டர்ப். அவர் பேசுற நடுவுல கரகரங்குது.
சரி. இல்ல எனக்கு மட்டும் தான் அப்படி இருக்குதா இல்ல எல்லாருக்கும் அப்படி இருக்குதான்னு பார்த்தேன்.
இல்ல ஏதோ சின்ன டிஸ்டர்பன்ஸ். ஆனா டைம் எக்ஸீட் ஆயிட்டு என்னன்னு தெரியல.
1 o'clock வந்து இருக்குல்ல.
ஓகே, திரும்பி நெக்ஸ்ட் 2 o'clock தானே.
ஆமா, இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கா போயிட்டு இருந்து. பட் வந்து நிறைய டிஸ்டர்ப் ஆகுது.
So these are all some examples. These are all some examples for MBR modules like used. So here we can see there is a separate biological reactor tank, and then in which there are membranes also arranged together, so that both membrane as well as biological treatment process work out here to treat the wastewater. So these are all some of the examples of MBR companies.
I think Mamata Sen should stop sharing.
So in summary, actually, so I come to the conclusion part. So what is the summary of this talk? There is a membrane system to treat most any water problem. So we have like membrane processes to treat any kind of water problem present. And then if you take RO and NF system like reverse osmosis and nanofiltration systems, they should be used to remove only dissolved solids.
Sorry to disturb you, sir.
Clear feed water. So that is very important.
The screen
and
is not shared.
Use ultrafiltration and microfiltration unit. So it can remove suspended solids, turbidity, and then it can remove color and odor and all. So, but when you take ED, that means electrodialysis, it removes selectively ions from water. So whenever you have water with ions, so you can go for electrodialysis. So, but if it has virus and bacteria, it cannot remove. So based on the water type and your application, you can choose these membrane treatment processes and also the membranes. So that is very important actually in selecting these membrane processes for various treatment processes.
Sir, screen is not visible.
Finally,
sir, again 2 o'clock one more session is there.
Our director, Dr. N. Kalaiselvi, and then Dr. S. Angappan, coordinator this GKSO program. And then I thanks to my fellow scientists, research scholars, project assistants in our electrochemical process engineering division. I thank all, and thank you all for your good, thank you for your kind attention, and good luck for your future. Thank you. So,
sir,
any
sir.
questions you
Yes,
may
sir.
have,
Sir.
so please to ask me.
Sir,
Nicely done, sir.
Sir, in the house we are using RO system.
Thanks a lot, sir.
In that,
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Sir, are you able to hear me?
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
In the house we are using RO system.
वाटर के अंदर
Yes,
क्या
yes.
होना चाहिए और क्या ये आरओ सिस्टम से पानी जो पीते हैं ड्रिंकिंग वाटर ये बेनिफिशियल है हेल्थ के लिए या नहीं है सर? जैसे पहले गांव वगैरह में पहले ही कुआं और नल से पानी निकाल के पीते थे लोग, ज़्यादा हेल्दी रहते थे, लेकिन यहाँ के लोग जब फिल्ट्रेशन के बाद प्रोसेस जो हो रहा है तो क्या बेनिफिशियल है या नहीं?
Ask your questions.
Venkateshan. Venkateshan.
Answer.
Venkateshan.
Kindly,
Sir, Venkateshan, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Sir,
yes.
one question, sir.
Yes.
Hello, Venkateshan.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
He is asking. Venkateshan.
Sir, sir.
sir.
One person is asking whether RO water drinking is best or
Yeah.
So RO water drinking is best.
Is
That is what he is
beneficial or
asking.
not?
Best or not?
beneficial or not?
So yeah, usually if you take RO water, so the total dissolved solids, I mean, as I said before, RO system remove almost all the contaminants present in the water. That means suspended solids and then virus, bacteria. So everything it removes. So usually if you take RO water, it may have 10 to 15 ppm of TDS. So we can say RO water is pure water, but if you the nutrition, like for our health, we need some basic metal ions should be present in the water, like sodium, potassium ions at manageable level. So in that case, we cannot say RO water is best, but look at the quality wise. I mean, remove these disinfectant and other contaminants. Definitely, we have to go for RO systems. So RO system, we can say it completely removes everything. That means whatever harmful to our health. So it removes, but it removes the nutrition also, like sodium and potassium ion also, which is more needed for our health. So that also removes.
Sir,
So we cannot
time
say
has exceeded, sir.
100%
Time has exceeded.
water.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
last question.
Hello, sir. Sir, how much TDS is required for RO water? Sir, how much TDS is required?
No, the TDS level, I told in RO system mostly in 10 to 15 ppm. But if you take groundwater, the like from wells or bore wells, the ppm level is around 100 to 200 ppm. Okay, so even people in villages, you can see they drink well water, right? So that 100 to 200 ppm, it may have, what my opinion, the required level of the dissolved. So we can say like the 100 to 200 ppm maybe good for.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. I am MG Reddy from JDT Mumbai. Sir, is it good for taking the borewell water rather RO water?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It depends on the water. See, we cannot directly take the water. First of all, we have to analyze the water. See, mostly these borewell water and all, it may have other contaminants, like there will be suspended solids, and then like there will be like virus, bacteria and all. So we cannot say it is very safe. In the case, we have to treat this water also before drinking. That is what my opinion.
In that case, what is the best way of taking the water, sir? How to purify the water without using the RO?
So that's why like they are using it, for example, for disinfectant purpose. Usually the groundwater may have like microorganisms, virus, bacteria and all. So to remove this one, usually they follow chlorination, chlorination treatment. So that also one kind of method we can follow. And then like other suspended solids, we can use some simple filtration process like sand or some kind of even charcoal also we can use for filtration purpose. So that kind of filtration things we can make sure that it may not have any suspended solids or other suspended materials. So that also we can
Sir, simply AquaGuard water is okay. It is to take. It is the best way to take AquaGuard water. It is safe for health wise.
What? Sorry, I couldn't get
AquaGuard water safe அப்படின்னு கேக்குறாரு சார். AquaGuard water is safe அப்படின்னு கேக்குறாரு.
Without RO.
Is it safe to take AquaGuard water?
Yes, sir. That's what I am saying. So, whether safe or not, so we have to analyze the water quality. So, see, we cannot simply say from one location, if you take groundwater, it may have different level of contaminants or dissolved solids or dissolved salts. And if you take from other location, it may vary. So we cannot simply say in general way that we can take groundwater. So that depends on the water quality. So for that we have to analyze the water actually. So that is very important.
Sir,
nowadays
Thank you, sir.
RO and RO combined with UV is also there.
Yes.
Yeah, which is better because to UV RO and UV together is also available. Is that have some more advantage?
Yeah, see, UV usually it specifically remove the microorganisms present in the water, and also UV can remove small organic molecules present in the water. So UV treatment mostly we can use for the water if it has more microorganisms. But if there are like other dissolved salts or other we cannot go for UV.
Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to find out. Here I have to find out one thing. So in fact, I am not, very expert in this water treatment process. So my research area is something, different. But if you want to have some discussion on water treatment based processes, so in our division itself, there are some scientists who are working on water treatment process. You may contact them. Okay, so I can give the contact details through this.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, you can ask Dr. Angappan, so he will coordinate.
Sir,
Hello, sir.
If Dr. Venkatesan doesn't mind, this is Pariniyappan who gave the previous talk. So I will just answer few questions. I'll clarify. If people can mute their mic, I will clarify some of the questions that has been posed by many participants. The first question they asked is it RO water safe to drink? And the next question they put is, RO and UV is there, which one is best to use it? So I'll just clarify this. Give me 1 minute. Please, all of you mute your mic. RO water, again, it is probably not the best water to drink, but with advancement in the RO membrane, the technician can come and tune the water. They will come up with the TDS meter. They will check actually what is the TDS total dissolved solid in your water. Based on that, suppose if it is 400, they will tune it to 300. Okay, if you have TDS levels of 100, they are normally considered to be okay by the WHO. So you can drink a water which has got a TDS of 100 to 150. So if your borewell water has a TDS directly of 100 to 150, you don't have to use a RO. Answering the next question is, it's better to use actually UV in most of the water purification system because it takes care of the microbes. We have a small houses, right? Nowadays we work on 40 to 30 feet or 2 cents of plot or size of our houses are very small. It's shrinking down because we don't live in a joint family, right? So there are possibility that the drainage from our house, the wastewater from our house can mix with this borewell water, can contaminate, and then it will become a point where the microbes can grow, right? To kill those microbes, it is always better to use a UV. So if a company is offering RO with the UV, you make a decision. If your water quality, the TDS is greater than 100, go for combination of those two. If it is less than 100 or equal to 100, just use only UV. I hope that answers all the questions. If anything else also, I'm very happy to answer, provided Dr. Venkateshan says it's okay.
Yes, sir. Sir, thank you, Palniappan sir, for your, yeah, good answer for these questions. So I think if any more questions, you can ask Dr. Palniappan sir will answer your questions.
Okay, thanks a lot, sir. Thank you so much for this marvelous speech.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. I want to ask you one question. What type of membrane is going to be used in UVRO?
Hello.
Yes. My question is that what type of membrane is going to be used in UVRO?
UVRO.
Yeah.
Two different techniques. RO, we will use
these days, most of the persons are using UVRO, not simply RO.
Yeah.
So that means it's a combination of both ultra. I mean, it has both UV treatment as well as RO membrane.
Sir, the UV and RO are two different processes. For UV, you have to use a UV light. It passes through a small chamber where the UV light is there. So you call it as a cartridge, right? So it passes through the UV cartridge, the water, the microbes get killed. Then it passes through RO membrane. But normally in our house, if they are supplying RO with the UV, initially it passes through RO membrane, then it comes to UV light. Regarding the membrane, it is the Dow, the chemical is the one which initially popularized this particular membrane. This is specifically works for reverse osmosis. Nothing but of the membrane is of smaller in size. It's made of polymeric material and the holes in the membranes are extremely small. It takes care of almost all the minerals. Okay, so RO is a separate process, UV is a separate process. You have two different cartridges in your system, drinking water system. If you go to the shop, you tell that fellow, he will say, sir, we have 4 filtration process, 6 stages, 7 stages. So all these stages mean something. Each one has something in that.
But the water obtained from RO has the TDS which lies between 50 to 100. So that is not good for health. So why the people are using UVRO? I am not getting this.
If your question is right, the TDS is more than 300, why people are using only UV? We don't know. It's better to bring down that. It's better to bring down TDS to 100 to 150. It is acceptable by many people all around the world. And to kill only microbes, you are going to use a UV lights. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. It has been brought to the technician. The water obtained from UV RO lies between 50 to 100. According to your speech, that TDS is not good for health. So why we people are running towards the UV RO? I am not getting this. Just try to explain.
Okay, that's a good question. It is always a confusion, right? Rather than drinking a water which has got very high TDS and having all other problems, stomach problems, kidney stones and stuff like that, we are just bringing down the minerals. If you buy a commercial product, I don't want to again name the companies, they will say fortified with the minerals. Okay, they use the word, you buy the bottled water. We are going on a train, on a bus. The only option we left with is buying a water bottle, right? When you buy the water bottle also, it has come through this treatment only. And then they will return a word which is called fortified with the minerals. So, yeah, I mean, we have to make a choice. If our body can accept huge amount of minerals, it's okay to go with a regular water without all these purifications. But there are certain people who cannot take this, right? Aged people or young kids, and those are the cases where we are going to use RO. We are not recommending like RO is the best system. It is again, you apply your knowledge and go ahead with whatever the water quality you want.
So I am using RO produced by Can का RO मैं use कर रहा हूँ.
Sir, question सुनाई नहीं दिया, तो repeat करना पड़ेगा.
I am using RO manufactured by Ken, and according to the statement of the technician, the TDS of the water obtained from this RO lies to 100.
Yeah, I understand that you're using a Kent water system. The TDS is 100. I think that is safe to use it. No problem.
Okay, sir. So nice of you. Bye.
Sir, good afternoon. I have a question. Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, looking big.
I have a question. Like, there is a lot of electronic waste, whether in terms of mobile phones or any other thing, which is that metal which penetrates with the surface water or the groundwater more easily. Which metal? And which is that which is highly toxic that can enter into our body? Hello?
Definitely, sir. What our question is, we are using a lot of electronic gadgets and they contaminate the water. What do we do?